We're going to cover the topic of mastering the MES out on the plant floor using base MES, not advanced, not the data collection or the IoT part. This is just using basic MES. So the benefit of MES is I get real-time information. If I have to have an employee write down their labor on a ticket and then wait for someone tomorrow to key it in and then someone the next day to validate it, I cannot go back and correct that job because I can't travel in time back 2 days to go fix it. So by having the data collected in MES, I know I have real-time monitoring of what machines are running, what jobs are running, what employees are actually working. The different data collection methods is start and end activity. There's a work queue, and then there's time and expense entry. I still run across people doing labor ticket entry and then coming back and going, well, we need our information in more real time. Well, you're never going to get it through time and expense manual entry. That is always after the fact. Using the start and end activity has been the original way of, yes, this is data collection. Epicor rolled out the work queue, and I find a lot of people are not using this. So we're going to take a look at the work queue a little more today. Reporting and dashboards. Reporting in MES doesn't exist. So this is a real simple topic. Dashboards is any tracker, and almost every tracker is available inside MES. We're also going to take a look at the material handling, moving inventory, the downfall of PCID in Kinetic, and using cycle counting, doing your daily cycle counts, doing a full physical and entering count tags. This is available right on the MES screen. So if I have 10 people doing counts, they can tie up the MES licenses for a day or for a weekend just to get things updated. We can also do quality control inside MES, all the way from creating an RMA, receiving it, dispositioning it. Not sure I would want that 100% done in MES, but it is available there. We can also do non-conformance. We can do DMRs. All of the basic quality functions are there. Not going to go into the enhanced quality, but if you have the base quality module, those functions are available, including the inspection processing. So I don't need a laptop for an inspector to walk around on the floor. And then we're going to take a look also at shop manager tools that are available for the supervisors or the team leads, as well. I would say anyone from production scheduling or plant management should be looking at the shop manager tools. Otherwise, data collection is for machine operators. They punch in, what date and time did I punch in? When did I leave? What department am I in? Just because my system says I'm a welder doesn't mean somebody can't say, hey, go out and help fabrication. I can switch over to that department and go work on their jobs just as well. So if I'm a floating employee on the floor, we just need to train them how to change what department they're in. Again, logging into the system allows you to utilize the MES terminal. That does not be the same thing as clocking into the system and clocking out. Clocking in starts your payroll. Clocking out ends your payroll. Whether we use payroll in Epicor or not, these are the time punches that labor entry is going to look at for the start of the day and the end of the day. For that labor, if a person's on direct labor for 4 hours, indirect labor for 2 hours sweeping the floor, and they were in for 8 hours, what'd they do for the other 2 hours? That's idle time. There's no place to clock into for idle time, but when the person clocks out at the end of the day, if that is turned on, the system will calculate how much idle time did they have per day and what was their total for the week. This is also important information because if I can get the employees on the shop floor to put more dedicated time on jobs, I increase my throughput without increasing my payroll. On the Epicor screens, you can get to the part tracker and job tracker pretty much from every screen in MES. So when someone says, I don't know what I have to do on this job, you didn't right click or you weren't trained on how to do this. But job and part tracker are generally available everywhere throughout MES. The labor queue is also sitting out there. So I can go take a look at what do I have in labor? What do I have to do today? We're going to talk more in the labor and work queue a little bit later. The basic application sections are going to be production, material handling, package control, shipping and receiving, the service department, as well as supervisors. So the entire system is broken into these 6 main areas. Once I log into the system, it's going to show me who I am, when did I log in, what shift am I working on. Once I'm logged in, this button turns to log out or close, and the clock out takes over. You never have to clock in, because if you have no labor punch and you're not in the system for the day, Epicor will first clock you in, add you to the system, and let you move and do your transactions. It's only at the end of the day you need to tell us, when did you leave the building, when did payroll stop. The data collection menu is here up top, and again, our part and job tracker are sitting here, but these are the functions for the operators. This is going to be the queue of jobs that they're working on. And yes, these columns are customizable. You can reorder them so that their information they're looking for is right at their fingertips. Over here on the right, they can also see any documents attached to the job, as well as the job details such as operational comments, job comments, assembly comments. Down on the bottom, for the type of worker, for the production section, these are the buttons that become available. For a material handler, they're going to have a different set of applications across the bottom. Each unit has a different set. I haven't found where any two ever repeat. So we're going to see here on this one, even though I'm not a quality person, I have access to nonconformance as a labor operator. The operator would create the nonconformance. Inspectors would then turn around and process it. Main areas of the section are going to be what tab or what area do you want, what's available on your menu, what jobs are you clocked into on the queue, and then what all functions can you do from the MES terminal.
And we have a question from Mike Kelvin. Can PCID be used for make to order and have PCIDs in WIP yet, or do they have to be received to inventory still in MES?
You should be able to have a PCID in WIP and receive your parts to them after the operation, because on the end activity, I don't know if I have that screen, we'll take a look. I believe there's a PCID button on the end activity where you can turn around and put it into a controlled ID. This is generally where a serial number tracked item starts its life on the plant floor.
And then for Mike, is there built-in control over what operations a given employee can start activity on?
Nope. If you're a shop floor user and you have access to the MES system, you can clock in on any job. Can we limit that? Yes. You can put a method directive or a data directive on that and say, hey, you're an employee, you're in this department, you can't leave it. I don't know as if you'd want to do that, because for employees that float between departments, you need to let them bounce around. Now, the department that they default to is what they're going to see when they come up to the terminal. As we'll see with mine, one of the employees I clocked into didn't have a default, so they have to select it. The other one has a default and shows the jobs that are in that area. So for production, labor quantities are your major sections, nonconformance reporting, material movements and requests. I put the requests in because if you're using the Advanced Material Management or AMM module, now I can request a handler bring me additional raw materials or supplies. When I finish the job, I can request a material handler to come pick up the skid or the pan of parts and move them on to the next location. If your operator is the one that moves the parts to the next work center, they can uncheck that box. There is unit of measure splitting and merging and managing different sizes of inventory. I can do cycle count entry and I can do Kanban receipts. So these are the key areas for a production person that's going to be using the MES system. Material handlers, I'm not going to list everything that's available because on their tab, it's very, very busy. Every function I think you can do in inventory control general operations is sitting as a button over on the MES material handlers. Now, the employee has to be marked as a material handler or a supervisor to get to some of them. The shipping, same thing, it's soup to nuts. I can do RMA processing, disposition, transfer orders, customer orders, subcontracts, bill of lading. I get pretty much the whole kit and caboodle there on the MES without having to use a full Epicor license. Epicor comes at two different license prices. The MES is your cheapest one. They can also do receiving from MES, and that's where they would get the POs or receive purchase orders into the system. And based on if the PO is set to go to quality, route it to the shelf, do a dock to stock type thing, this is all the exact same thing that's in the full Epicor client. There is also maintenance and service where I can do calibrations, enter meter counts, take a look at maintenance jobs, punch in or start on maintenance jobs. But this is its own tab. If you don't have the service module or didn't purchase that, the buttons are just going to be grayed out. Even if you go into the employee and say, hey, they can go to maintenance jobs. If you don't own the module, it's not going to highlight. For the base modules that I would say 97% of the customers have, orders, jobs, engineering, inventory, and basic quality, and then shipping, receiving, and inventory, those are all available here in MES.
Hey, Kelvin.
Go ahead.
From Ed, is it difficult to integrate a security badge system for clock in and clock outs?
Oh, hell no. Whether I do a badge, I do a fingerprint, I do a facial scan, I don't care what you do. You're just adding that as your system for when they walk up to the terminal. How are they getting to that first button of login so that we know who they are? I would say based on your security requirements, this is where we're going. I had one client put in hand scanners all over the building. It took care of their opening and closing of doors too. But it tied back to a custom field off of the employee, which was the handprint. Shop floor supervisors are going to have a different area because they have almost every system tracker. They get to go see everything, orders, jobs, RMAs, all the trackers are sitting in there. They also have inspection processing, DMR processing, corrective actions. So all the quality items are there. And then this lovely little thing called a shop tracker. And we're going to take a look in detail about the shop tracker as we get down to it. This is the number one place I'll see supervisors sitting or requesting custom dashboards be added to it. So inside my data collection methods, I can start a production or I can start setup on a job. I can start indirect. I'm sweeping the floor. I'm going to an OSHA meeting. I can start rework. I turned around damaged parts. Now I got to fix them. I can turn around and clock in on rework rather than start production and have the system record my labor hours and quantities through the rework. And then this little unknown thing called the work queue. Hopefully people are starting to use this. The work queue, when an operator goes into it, shows them all the jobs they have to work on today, what's coming in the future, what's going to be expected down the road. There's also a way they can just say, hey, show me everything. The jobs are displayed in the queue by the order of how the scheduler put them on the board. Literally 2 clicks to clock onto a job. You select your row, you hit the start button, you're on. That moves in the work queue over to the active tab. Now I can go in and put in which one I'm ending activity on, put in my quantity and hit end, and I'm out of it a whole lot quicker than going through any of these 4 buttons or the 2 other buttons for end activity.
And Kelvin, from Dan, what's the difference between work queue and the priority dispatch report?
Nothing. Work queue is visible to the people on the floor in real time. The priority dispatch is out of date the second the scheduler moves the job. So your priority dispatch is a physical report that is only good for a couple seconds. The work queue, if the scheduler changes or moves the job around or inventory can't be obtained or purchased materials can't come in, that job's going to get rescheduled. That's direct and live to the work queue. People see that in real time.
Calvin, can I interject for a second? Another great thing with the work queue is that you could start and stop multiple jobs at the same time. You can start them at the same time. We do that.
So yes, there are some fun things with the work queue that you're not going to see on priority dispatch. And if you tell me you can read the priority dispatch without having special format template, I'm going to say you're lying because everybody complains about the layout of that report. So when I start production activity, I just need to tell the system what job I'm working on and what operation and assembly. Once I'm on here, everything's going to default for where the job got scheduled. Now the operator could say, oh, machine 2 broke down, so I'm running it on machine 3 today. they're more than welcome to change what machine or resource they're doing the work on. Same thing when they do a start a setup activity, got to tell them what job we're setting up, what operation, what assembly. It is the same screen, it's just the labor type changes. Literally, Epicor just changes the switch from labor type S for setup to P for production. But other than that, the screens are identical. They have access to all of their information. I want job details. I want documents. I want to do an override. Hit the override and I can change what machine I'm doing it on. I would not necessarily have them change a department without going through production control, because that's going to have a different costing record most likely. I can also start my indirect. That's the easiest screen in Epicor. Roll, you have to put in indirect code or you sweeping the floor. Again, OSHA safety meeting. What is this? And then the default resource group will automatically pop in. So they literally fill out one field and they're done here. For starting a rework, they have to tell me the job, assembly, and operation, and then what they're doing for rework. Why did they have to do it? So if we need to track at the end of the job why we had so many rework hours, I need to know why they were doing. They have to put a description in there and pick this. Documents are fully available here. Whether you use DocStar, you use basic document attachment, doesn't matter. You're going to be able to get to any documents that are linked from the engineering. If they're added at the time of job, they'll be there. When you run the get details, everything copies from engineering now into the job. When I turn around and release the job, anything that is on there is available on the plant floor. Can they download the file? Yes. I'm not a big fan of that because now their file's out of date and not being controlled. The more info is going to show me all of the job details, information about the job, the assembly I'm making, the operational details, how many people have to be working this, and then all of the comments that are attached to that job show up here on this screen. So anything that the production person has in the job is available on the plant floor. Do I need to print a traveler then? Nope, because everything's available electronically here. And the place we're going to see that is on this super busy work queue. The work queue shows who's the employee and what resource group are they looking at. So when I went to the assembly bench, I'm only going to see the jobs for the assembly bench area. From the queue, I can say, show me all jobs, show me what's current, what's available to work on, because it works better if you have the inventory to start making parts, and what's expected coming down the pipe. You could have a super busy work center. They can look at the expected and they'll see it out months. Anything that's on the Epicor schedule comes over here. So just like that priority dispatch, if you had a super long section on there, it's going to be super long on this one. The active tab shows me what jobs you started activity on. And literally the way to start an activity is click the select checkbox here and hit start activity. The employee is now clocked on and working on the job. Can they get to additional information? Yeah. Can they request materials be brought over? They don't have the raw materials to start the job, they can request them. They can still see the documents. And this grid, they can turn around and add filters. They can select multiples. They could say select all and put me on all the jobs. This comes in handy for like a paint line where, oh, we're going to load up 8 jobs because they're all black powder coat. Okay, totally fine. You can select them all and then clock into all of them with just a couple of clicks. By doing this through the start activity screen, they'd have to hit start activity, scan the job, assembly, and operation, then click OK. And then do that 8 times for the jobs they're on in the paint booth. Versus they could come in here, filter it for the ones they're looking for, select them all, and then turn around and start activity. The work queue is a whole lot easier because, as I said, if the schedule changes, the work queue is updated in real time. Again, there is no reporting, but trackers do exist. Job and part, package control trackers, shipping and receiving, there's a billion trackers for that, as well as service, a billion trackers for that are all available on the shop floor. Giving access to the shop floor to the tracker is not a damage because they can't change anything. They can go look at what they're doing, find details about what they should be doing, but they can't change any of it. They would have to go to somebody else in the office who has a full Epicor license to do that.
Going back to work queues, how are work queues filtered? Employee department resource. I think you did show that it's filtered that way.
Right
Can
here.
those filters be modified?
You mean hit the filter button and go search where you want to be? You can put the person anywhere, any plant. Now, if there are no jobs in that area, they're just going to see an empty work queue. But by all means, and I think on the very first button of the overflow horizontal menu here, it's search. So you can hit either the filter button or overflow menu and click search, and that'll get you to the search to change your resource group. You can say, put me in this department, show me all the resources in that department, and then choose which one you want.
Thank you.
This is where I was saying you need to train the employees that are floaters between areas how to change where they are so they can see the other jobs. Those that don't float, don't train them how to do it. And you just, in essence, saved yourself writing a method directive. Dashboards and trackers, when we come up to the supervisor, the key one is going to be the shop tracker. Got a question here from Don. Can they change the resource on the same job? I'm going to go ahead and throw a question out here. Are they changing the resource they're clocking on the work queue? Because they're not rescheduling the job. They would just change, telling the system, I'm not working on this resource, I'm doing it on this machine. Yep, Don, exactly. If a washer goes down, they need to go to a different one. When they start activity on that job, I did not move that column over, sorry. You would scroll over to the resource column and select which one you're doing the work on. Okay, next one is my shop tracker. And this is where a lot of people are going to exist that are supervisors or team leads, because this is their pulse on what's going on the shop floor. Show me all the information regarding resources. A lovely button here called, we'll head down, come on, who's here, who's not here. These are the employees that are punched into the system. They hit the clock in button, or I'm sorry, the login button, and started their labor activity for the day. As you see here, nobody in our system is cleaning this up because we have people clocked in for 3 years. This will start to slow down your system if you have a lot of users. Luckily, it's only a sandbox, so it's not too bad. The best part of this is who's not here. These are all of the active employees on this shift that haven't punched in yet, because any jobs in their department might be a little late. So knowing who's here, knowing who's not here, sorting it by supervisor so that supervisor 105 can see all their employees that are clocked in. Just add a filter here, put in your supervisor ID, and now you see just your employees. Next one is active resources. What machines are currently running? And if I see there are machines that are not in this list that had crucial jobs on them, I know where to go focus my fix time. So my active resources, and then is the fun part called shop warnings. Shop warnings have been around in the system maybe 30 years. And this is where I can say the operations overestimate. Excess scrap was reported than what we planned for. The efficiency is really good or really bad. Shop warnings, you get to configure and turn on what you want to be notified about on your plant floor. You don't have to turn them all on. You can just say, tell me information about these. The supervisor should be looking and going, wow, efficiency is underrated. That means this person's working really slow to make parts. Walk over and fix it right now. Don't wait until tomorrow, because then you'll lose 8 hours of the day. These shop warnings should be monitored every 2 hours or so. The supervisor should see where are the problems and try and fix them before we lose an entire production day to it. The entire industrial internet of things is collecting data from the machines in real time because our operators can't get us the info to tell us where the problems are. Well, actually, the system has been collecting the info about how are jobs running, how are people performing. We just need to monitor this. After I look at my jobs for this hour, I can say, hey, move them to history. Move them all to history. I handled all of them. I took care of it. Any transactions or time punches from the time you moved it to history are now showing you the new batch. That's why I said every 2 hours or so, they should be looking at this, fixing the problems on the shop floor and moving the records to history. Now, I do disagree with Epicor storing 52 or 62 weeks of history. If you can remember what you had for lunch last Thursday, I'd be amazed. Storing 52 weeks or 62 weeks of shop warnings, you can't go back to an operator and ask them what they did 48 weeks ago. So normally I bring that setting down to maybe 4 to 6 weeks. If you have very long running jobs, okay, we may want to extend that a little further. But if your job life is under 30 days, we can keep this under 4 weeks. Material handling is also available inside the software. As I said, the inventory clerks can do everything here that they can do in Epicor. I highlighted the major ones of take a look at the material queue. This is what material movements need to be processed. If I don't use the queue, I can issue material, return material. I can do it manually. I can mass issue a job and go pull all the parts for it. I can adjust inventory because if I go pull inventory and it says, hey, pull 10 pieces, and I see, hey, we only have 8. You need to adjust the inventory down to 8 and then move the 8 pieces, but somebody needs to know those other 2 pieces don't exist. And same thing when we do cycle counts, I can put cycle count entry in. So I can enter tags whether it's a full physical or a daily count. I have the ability to enter those here in real time, and the system tracks the date and time that the count tag was returned. Because the system will look at it and go, oh, we had these inventory transactions after that point in time that it was counted. Let's adjust it here and then let the other transactions still continue. I also have package control, which was really rough to do, Christine, because I'm on a kinetic screen. But can I move, work, and process? Should I be able to do these things? Yes. I just was having trouble getting it in kinetic after learning your little story. Data collection. I can go to the supervisor tab, and the supervisor has pretty much everything, but the supervisor is who generates the PCID, not the material handler. Quality control is also on the supervisor tab. I've got my inspection processing, my DMR, and my corrective action here. Nonconformance was back on the production operator screen. All of the other trackers are right here, including that shop tracker. So I will see supervisors right here. We've also had people request an additional tab be made that shows the shop tracker data rather than having to click into it. Just show me it because that's what I'm looking for. Or add a tab and show me the scheduled work in my area without having to go to the work queue. Just show me what's going on immediately. Based on who you are and when you clock in, that dashboard can auto-populate and show you the jobs that are in your area. This was kind of a whirlwind. I was saying we'll probably finish a little early today. What questions do we have, Fred?
Well, as soon as I get off of mute, we've covered everything so far. I'm
I
just
saw a
talking
tall
to my
person
screen.
walk over my monitor, and I thought that was you. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so far we've got everything answered, so I think you're doing all right. If there are any questions, because everything else that's left unanswered is from previous session, that I
Got
figure
it.
we can jump back to on Stump the Chump.
That works.
I have a question. It's MES related, but it's also handheld related. I
Got
noticed
it.
in the security menu or in the menu maintenance, they have handheld underneath data collection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have an issue where I have a user or users who are getting access to inventory adjustments in handheld, but nowhere else in the system. And I don't understand how.
So you're saying they can go to the handheld and do inventory transactions that they can't do?
Yeah, they have access to, for instance, quantity adjustment in handheld, which is underneath the quality mod or the data collection module, but they do not have access to it in full Epicor with the exact same loggings. And also, depending on what you give access to in the handheld, you have to make sure they have access through the employee. I don't know. It's just kind of convoluted on the handheld versus the MES there. So just a heads up.
Christine, I would definitely run that support because the reason that's there, MES is one license, the Epicor main menu is another license type, and the handheld's a third one.
Gotcha.
So I'll bet they're not following the same security settings because it's 3 different ways to get to the function.
From Dan, we have had issues with adding trackers to screens due to login security items such as method tracker. Is there best practice for adding buttons to the home screens through App Studio?
Dan, go ahead and make your own dashboard, copy Epicor's queries onto it, which are base queries, and then turn around and deploy your dashboard to MES. The dashboard is where the security is laid on in Epicor. If you turn around and put the queries on your own dashboard and say it's a MES dashboard, you can then deploy it. Adding your own tab would be going through the application studio. And on your application map, I would turn around and put another panel card up here and then put your dashboard on that. The question from Jason was, you had mentioned there's a way to tie together biometrics and or key fobs. Logging onto MES, how does one go about hijacking the MES logon to use this alternate method of logging in? I would turn around and put a function on there that says, hey, go out and check my USB or my COM port attached security device. Query it if there was a data that was sent in. If there was data being sent into the system, then go ahead and run the clock in with the employee ID that was read on the card or the scan. You would have to have that function continually running, but periodically checking so that, yes, somebody walked up to the terminal, it turned around and greeted them. The other would be to turn around and have them hit the clock in and then hijack that screen to capture the information of who they are. If you don't want to have this machine constantly hitting the server and go, hey, go ahead, check this. Is it still running? Is it still running? Then I would say move that to after they click the login button, then turn around and take the data in from the reader.
And then from Adam, maybe not MES related, but what would be a good use case for WIP PCID? Moving multiple jobs at once?
I've never tried putting multiple jobs on a skid. I had a client that was receiving multiple parts from the same job onto a skid, and then their order would be like 20 skids. Christine, do you guys have anyone mixing jobs into a PCID?
Not as a work in process, no. It would be, I would think the same way you're saying, it would be a large job with multiple skids or multiple PCIDs.
I would go back and ask the guy that was at your user group meeting to find out if that's even available. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be, but we also don't see why the bugs exist.
I may be able to email him again, yes.
I think that's got them all, right?
Yes.
I'm a lot a bit early. Do we want to take a 5-minute break?